What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You got Ike Jones back with another morning drop. Just recently, well, like he does every week, Coach Hugh Freeze went on to Tiger Talk or into Tiger Talk to talk a little bit more about the Cal game. Had some interesting statements that I wanted to highlight for you. Let's get into it. Y'all know how we do right here, War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop. It is Wednesday, September the 11th. Hopefully, everyone is having a good week so far. Definitely always want to remember the events of September 11th and the things that transpired. Has absolutely nothing to do with the morning drop or our sponsor today, Rogue Shop. But just as I said it, it came to my mind. But definitely want to thank the sponsors of the War Report's morning drop right here on the Auburn Express. And that is the Rogue Shop. You can use code REPORT when you go over there. If you have any issues with sleep, stress, pain, or anxiety, the Rogue Shop can have a remedy for you. Make sure you check them out at rogueshop.com, use code REPORT. But as I said in the opening, Coach Freeze was on the Tiger Talk broadcast that happens over at bomb hours there in Auburn, Opelika, in the Auburn Opelika area on Monday, as he does every week. And he was talking about the Cal game a little bit more. And he does his Monday presser and then he has Monday meetings with the team. And he had an opportunity to talk with the quarterbacks. And so we got a little bit more insight about what Coach Freeze was thinking after those meetings happened with the quarterbacks and really getting a sense of what they understood. And I'm going to play a couple of clips from some of the things that he said during that. That interview that he had there that I found particularly interesting. But just kind of in summary, the thing that I got from is particularly about the quarterback, which is what we want to talk about here. Coach Freeze has reached a place of frustration, right? Like he's reached a place of frustration of not really understanding why the things that he feels as if, and I think were clarified from the quarterbacks, they have gone over and talked about were not being executed properly. During the game versus Cal. I mean, he went as far as to say during one of the clips, and I'm not sure if it's part of what I pulled up here, that on the play 4th and 2 there, he talked to Peyton Thorne about it, and Thorne was basically saying, if he felt like it was an opportunity to try to get Cam the ball because he was one-on-one, he's like, hey, hold on for a second. Like, that's not why you're here, right? Like I'm paraphrasing. He basically said, look, man, we'll get Cam the ball. We'll get opportunities to get him the ball later. Make the right play in this scenario, right? And he expects for his 5th-year senior quarterback to go out there and do that. So there was some frustration, I think, from Coach Freeze, and he did a good job of not sounding frustrated, but the rhetoric was definitely stuff that indicated frustration. But I want to play this first cut here from that conversation that he had there on Tiger Talk, and it was about the play calling, right? Because this is a portion that we talked about on Sunday about maybe the play calling wasn't necessarily conducive to the best way to be able to attack this Cal offense, or excuse me, this Cal defense. And what I gathered from this is Coach Freeze, and he said it's pretty clearly in this clip, they didn't feel like they called a bad game. But let's listen to it, and then I'll give some thoughts about it.
I'm the first to stand before our team and say, guys, we called 5 plays that schematically they did not give you a fighting chance, and that's our fault, and that's tough for me to say, but I always do that. But honestly, there was one play in this game that I think was a bad call by our staff.
So Coach Reese saying he really only thinks that there was one bad play call. Now, that's not really about a balance of whether or not they should have run the ball more or a situation where they felt like they had a bad plan going in. He's saying an actual call that happened during the game. There was only one time when they go back and look at the film and say, we didn't put you in a good scenario with that play call to be able to execute it. If you execute it properly, it will be successful. There was only one instance in which that happened during the game. Now, that's been widely talked about across the Auburn sphere of people who've heard that statement. And I'd have to go back and analyze the film to say, okay, I don't feel as if there were answers for this. But in the system in which Coach Freeze and Coach Nix are putting out there, I would say that's probably true. There were a lot of scenarios in which, if the play were executed properly, Auburn had an answer to be able to go out there and make a play on each one of those situations, which is all the more reason, I think, for the frustration when you come back and you look at the outcome of this game and you see that Auburn performed so poorly offensively. It's not because there were not good play calls that were put in place, and it was not because the quarterback didn't have an answer. It's not because the offensive line was put in a bad scenario. Some bad field goal position. I mean, some bad field position put you in places where you needed to run certain things in certain scenarios, and they actually executed those fairly well, particularly in the run game. But then when you have answers, particularly on a 4th and 2, where there are players open and you have the ability to go ahead and get the first down, and you just choose to do something different, that's where I think the frustration comes in. Coach Freeze went as far as to say during a portion of this that on that 4th and 2 play, like, Peyton Thorne simply got greedy, right? And for me, as a fan of the program, I get frustrated when I hear things like that because, I harken back to Peyton Thorne just last season, talking post the Ole Miss game about how your job as the quarterback is just to go out there and run the play as it's called, right? And then you find a year later where he's in a scenario where he has the opportunity to run the play as it's called. I mean, Auburn forgot, guys say they took a timeout right before actually running that 4th down play. They lined up for 4th and 2. They stopped. They took a timeout, came to the sidelines and talked about it. And he still went out there and decided he's going to just kind of do his own thing. Oh, man, I thought this was a good opportunity to go after. It's not what the play call was, right? Like, the play call as it's supposed to be executed, that's not how that works. So that I would be frustrated if I were Coach Freeze. And I think the other thing that frustrates me about this is, Coach Freeze just recently talked about during the offseason how at some point in time, what you put on film becomes your resume, right? What you do out there on the tape is what we have to judge you based on. And now that we've looked at a year and 2 games of Peyton Thorne on film, I'm not sure that it's a very good resume to be able to put out there as the quarterback for a team that has a lot of promise. You've noticed Coach Freeze this year has not gone to the familiar refrain from last year about, we don't have the same level of talent as everyone. What he has said is, we aren't talented enough to be able to play poorly and still win, right? Like, there are teams that have enough talent to overcome poor play and still win football games. So he clearly thinks that he's closed the gap a little bit, at least, in the talent aspect for his football team. So we have to limit the number of mistakes. And that's where I want to camp out here for just a second on the number of mistakes that have been made, not just by Peyton Thorne, but by this offense so far. Auburn, through 2 games so far in this season, has turned the ball over 7 times, right? 5 turnovers during the Cal game, 2 turnovers during the Alabama A&M game. Right now, Auburn is not valuing the football and possessions well enough. And that's not something that you can do and be successful in this league. Is you have to value the football. There's some great defenses that are going to be coming up against this Auburn football team here in a very short order. First of which is going to be New Mexico coming up this weekend. Now, New Mexico has given up a lot of points and they have been porous against the run so far. So I do expect Auburn to be able to perform admirably, particularly in the run game during this. But New Mexico also has a defense that is going to be able to come out here and give you some pressure looks, and they're going to try to force this Auburn offense to continue this trend of turning the ball over, which is a 180 thing from how this offense performed last season. This offense was not turning the ball over a lot. In fact, the defense was the one out there taking advantage of mistakes that the opposing offenses were doing, and Auburn has not forced a single turnover so far this season. So valuing the football, valuing possessions is something that Auburn just hasn't seemed to do, right? I talked about the 4th and 2 scenario. That's a valuable possession, particularly in a scenario in which you're behind and you need to be able to keep your offense out there on the field. Value the possession and go out there and continue a drive. Auburn has done a poor job of that so far. They've been shooting themselves in the foot. And again, I don't, I gave props to Cal in the Sunday show. I want to say again that the Cal did what they needed to do to be able to take advantage of the things that Auburn did. But let's be clear, Auburn did a very good job of shooting themselves in the foot and hurting themselves just as much as Cal took advantage of those missteps. So Auburn's got to do a better job of that going forward. Into these next few games, because again, you're getting into a portion of your season where the defenses are going to absolutely take another step up as far as their athleticism and their ability to just impact what you do. You've got to value the football a little bit more than Auburn's been doing so far. Um, Going to talk a little bit more about some of the comments that Coach Freeze made there, and kind of underscore the frustrations that I seem to hear from what he was saying. But before we do, definitely want to give a quick shout out to the sponsors of today's morning drop, and that is the folks over at Joy Mode. They are still out here providing great content for you all in terms of the morning drop. Head over to tryjoymode.com. You 20% off plus free shipping when you use code REPORT. Let's call out the obvious. Everybody wants to head into that bedroom with all the confidence in the world. We've been talking a lot about QB1. Mike G like says nobody wants to be QB2 in the bedroom unless QB2 is a better performer than QB1, and QB2 is the one that's using Joy Mode. But anyway, you want to make sure that you have the confidence when you head in there, and Joy Mode's got the remedy for you. This has been science backed, and it helps. Basically, what it does is just helps with your blood flow and your ability to get cardiovascular health going within your body, which will impact your performance in the bedroom. Or if you want to use it as a supplement to be able to help you with your physical performance, you can absolutely do that. But make sure look, when combined with a healthy diet and good sleep and exercise, you'll greatly improve your cardiovascular health. The 30 pack that you get for them comes in a perforated box, perfect for your supplement cabinet, pantry, or bathroom vanity. It's the perfect 1 month supply. Support your erections, athletic performance, heart health, and overall quality of life with Joy Mode. Whether you're on the move or traveling, our compact sachets are easy to pack and take with you. Get a Joy Mode boost anytime and anywhere. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you use code REPORT at tryjoymode.com. And trust me, your body will thank you. Let's get back over into the conversation and talk a little bit more about this quarterback scenario. And again, I said that Coach Freeze seemed to indicate some frustration. And I just want to play a quick clip about it because this seems very definitive for me about a line in the sand that's being drawn. Now, I don't know exactly what that line in the sand looks like as far as statistical play or percentage of correct decisions being made, but it's clear that Coach Freeze has reached a point of at least entertaining the idea that he could pivot in the quarterback position. Let's hear it.
First or second play, y'all have to help me, Brad. But we've got a little pitch route to the boundary. Cam got jammed initially. He should immediately be off that and should be to the field. And I want to tell you, I wish I could show it to everybody right now. Robert Lewis is running through the middle of the field with no one within 10 yards of him, and literally. Let's say he doesn't score. We will be at the 20-yard line going in to score to tie the game, and it's a play we've installed since day one, and why we force that is hard for me really to fathom, and he's got to change that, or we've got to make a change.
So that last statement right there, he's got to change that, or we've got to make a change, is really where I want to camp out here for a second. Coach Freeze making it very clear that if we're going to go out there and we're going to equip you with play calls that allow you to make good decisions and get our football team in position to score points, and you've decided you're going to go in a different direction for whatever reason you've decided to do that, and you make a poor decision, then you can't continue to be the quarterback for this football team. Now, at what point is he going to actually do that and make that decision? I don't know. And for the sake of Peyton Thorne, let me be very clear about this again. For Peyton Thorne's sake, I hope it doesn't come to this. I don't want to see him go out there and fail. I actually want to see him succeed if he's going to be the quarterback for this football team. But how bad does it need to get on the field? Because he also made it clear in the presser Monday morning that this week of practice will go a long way in determining who's going to get the lion's share of snaps. And Peyton Thorne has proven to be a good practice player, right? He can go out there and he can understand it. He talked with Coach Freeze said he talked with Peyton Thorne about all of the poor decisions that he felt like happened during that game. He said there were about 15 plays that they went and looked at and they diagrammed it and he asked him, okay, now what defense do you see and what protection would you call in this scenario? And they got all of them right except for one situation. Um, and when you're able to do that and you understand the game from that level, but then you're not able to translate that to the field, that's where it becomes disturbing about how soon does that performance on the field, does that tape become the resume in which determines whether or not you continue to be hired for this job of the starting quarterback for Auburn University. And that's the thing that I think a lot of fans want to be able to hear from Coach Freeze is, when is enough enough? At what point in time do we say, this is what we've got, and let's at least see what we have elsewhere? I know, people think that everybody just wants to clamor for the backup quarterback. No, what we clamor for is competency in an offense, right? And if the quarterback is a large reason as to why that offense is not performing the way that it needs to, let's move in a different direction and see who else is going to be able to potentially put you in a better position as a football team on Saturdays, because you got to win football games, man. You have to win football games. We It's not time to coddle people and make them feel like, oh, well, you tried your best. Well, did you? Did you really try your best? Or did you go out there and did you mess it up continuously and prevent other people from being their best selves because you held them back? That's something that I'm definitely looking forward to see. One other thing, I didn't get a clip from that, but Coach Freeze talked about how they're going to be limiting the playbook, which I actually think helps you to be able to um, evaluate these quarterbacks pretty evenly if you're going to give them the same size playbook to be able to digest. And something that both of them should be able to go out there and execute. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the division of snaps goes during this week at practice, and then subsequently how that translates to the field on Saturday. But he did say he didn't feel as if anything that they were asking Peyton Thorne and that offense to do against Cal was terribly complicated. It was things that he felt like they have gone over before plenty of times. So that does make me wonder just really how much more limited can you make this playbook if you really were going out there running very basic stuff, which you didn't get an opportunity to run some very specific things because you didn't get enough drives out there to do that. But if you've already said that you didn't really do a lot because you didn't have the ball much and those things weren't being executed very well, uh, how much more can you truncate this playbook to be able to give you a solid evaluation of what you're going to be doing on Saturday? That's something I'm going to be paying attention to as the week progresses and we move into the New Mexico game. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got for you. What I want to hear from you all, as always, want to hear you in the comment section is, what do you think of Coach Freeze's statements, number one, in regard to the quarterback play? And then number two, what do you feel like the bridge too far needs to be for the New Mexico game? What does Peyton Thorne need to show during this game? Also, if you haven't had an opportunity, you're not following me on Twitter, I did post that second soundbite along with video showing kind of what Coach Freeze was illustrating on that play. You can go check that out there on the Twitter for myself or the War Report. We've got that out there on social media. But that's it, man. I'm about to get out of here. As always, we want to thank the sponsor of the Morning Drop, and that is the good folks over at the Rogue Shop. Make sure you all head over to rogueshop.com and you use code REPORT when you do. That gets you a little bit of something off at America's #1 online dispensary. That is therogueshop.com. Use code REPORT. We'll be back at you with great Auburn content later on. Make sure you keep your notifications on Green Name Game. We will be coming back at you guys with more film review and some preview of some stuff for New Mexico later on this week. We got the midweek report coming up later on today. Like the video before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this content with somebody. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.